Hey tribe, how y'all doing? I'm Jerome Martha John, and I'm the founder and president of Tribal Innovations Theater Company. Tribal Innovations Theater Company is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that showcases the untold stories from the hearts of diverse communities, all while embracing and celebrating various cultures and religions. Tribal Connection is a series that incorporates the experiences of different members of the performing arts community. Join us in tonight's Tribal Connection, Rise of the Kings, hosted by the amazing Jonathan Ponder, where we will get to see the untold stories of these amazing men of color. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy a night of enlightenment, encouragement, and empowerment.
All right. Well, hello and welcome to Tribal Connection. We are doing Rise of the Kings, and I have a wonderful panel of Black men to talk to you about some things that we've experienced as artists, as writers. Some of us are actors. I am your host. My name is Jonathan Michael Ponder. I'm also known as Joe Nathan Michael. And I am a singer, dancer, actor. I just recently finished Summer, the national tour. We had to come to a close, of course, obviously because of COVID. However, I am still pressing on. I'm still pursuing and doing my acting thing. I'm going to be your host, and today I have a wonderful panel of artists. That's what we're going to call them, artists today, because they do so many different things. We don't just playwright, we don't just act, we don't just sing, but we exist, we evolve, and we share what we have. So I want to introduce my wonderful panel of gentlemen, and we have today with us, we have Khy Garner, we have Damien Berger, we have Ricardo Khan, and we have J. Marshall Evans, and we also have our Charles White. All right, so I introduced myself. I mean, I didn't really tell you too much about me because you will get to know me throughout this whole discussion. I promise you that. However, I would love to turn it over to one of our gentlemen. We'll start with Khy. I want you to introduce yourself to our viewers and let them know what you're about, what you do, and all of that good stuff.
All righty, thank you so much, man. Again, I'm Khy Garner. I am a vocal director in Central New Jersey. I teach private voice lessons. I've been doing that for about 20 years. Also a performer. Don't perform as much as I used to. Now I'm about the education and preparing the up and coming artists for their auditions.
Okay.
I'm based out of Woodbridge, where I operate in my private home, and I also do studio work in Rahway at the Union County Performing Arts Center. Right now, I have an event that I'm doing every month called Momentum, where I bring in 8 artists that are people of color, and I give them a chance to perform, and then interview where they can plug their work, and then we stream it live. We don't do it in front of an audience because right now we have the COVID going on, but it's just a chance to meet the up and coming artists that live in New Jersey. And actually next Saturday at this time is when I'll be making my recording with them. And I'm gonna do this every month until people are tired of seeing it. So that's my thing. I'm an educator.
Okay, all right. And we're going right to Mr. Damien Berger, who is next.
Right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Damien S. Berger. I am an actor, director, educator, and producer. I've been acting and directing for over 24 years. Um, I've taught high school theater, middle school, after school activities pertaining to the arts. Currently, I am based out of Roselle, New Jersey. I'm a board member for Progressive Theater Company that's based out of Maplewood, New Jersey. I currently work with Dunbar Repertory Theater, acting with them. So I get around a lot, do a lot. I love the stage, love everything about it. And yeah, throughout this conversation, as Joe said, you'll get to know a little bit more about me and my love and passion for the theater and the arts.
All right. And we have Mr. Ricardo Khan, who is next. Go ahead and let the people know who you are.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you. This is a great opportunity to be here with everybody.
Absolutely.
I live in Hoboken, and most of my work I do is in New York, so it's easy to get there on a river. I came out of, but I was born in Washington, D.C. I was living in Philadelphia, grew up in Camden, went to Rutgers, which is how I got to New Brunswick. And when I came out of Rutgers and grad school there, I realized that the kind of work I was doing as an actor was not the kind of work I wanted to do. I didn't think that it really solved or even addressed problems and issues having to do with our culture and our history and our future. So along with Lee Richardson, who also came out of Rutgers with me, we started Crossroads. So the Crossroads Theater is now celebrating 42 years, and I am back with them to help them, as of the last couple months, help them create a whole new vision for the future. Same mission, but a structure that I think is more in line with what's happening today. But I'm also a writer and a director, and I enjoy freedom.
Oh, yes. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we all? Okay.
Yep.
So we're moving on. Thank you. This is already so amazing. So we're gonna go over to J. Marshall Evans, and actually, guys, so before he starts, he's the only person that I actually know outside of this. So I just know this guy, and I can't wait for him to introduce himself to you. Go ahead, J. Marshall.
Hey everyone. My name is Jay Marshall Evans. I am a singer, thespian, writer, choreographer, composer. I'm also been teaching for a few years. Most people probably know me because I did work on Broadway. We're in 8 shows on Broadway, and done some work, a little bit of television and film, and so on and so forth. These days, I'm really spending most of my time creating, learning more of the inside forces of the entertainment business in terms of show running and executive producing television shows and film. I'm a playwright. I always say, I guess, I'm one of the students of Charles White, basically, being a part of Harlem Playwrights. But been doing a lot of writing lately and playwriting, and that's really kind of where my focus has been. I think I'm more on this side of creating, but every 3 years I seem to get back on the stage, which is great. I don't know why it happens. Sometimes it's not because I want to, I can tell you that. But I end up back on the stage, and it's been great. So I'm excited about being here and just being a part of the process and being invited. It was a great honor, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody and meeting everyone as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you just mentioned someone, Charles White. So Charles White, it's all you. Let's see what you got.
Okay, thank you. I'm Charles White. I am flattered to be part of this group because I am probably the least artistic of the group. I do not act, I do not sing, I do not dance, I only write. And I've I wrote in college, then I took 30 years off to be a corporate lawyer, and I started writing again 10 years ago. And I still have my day job as a lawyer, and I'm writing every night. The downside of that is you lose out on sleep. But I thoroughly enjoy the writing. And I am a founding member of a group called Harlem Playwrights 21, which Marshall is a member of. And we have playwrights who come in once a week. They bring scenes, actors read the scenes, and then we're trying to really get the work as good as we can and see if we can get it produced somewhere. That's the story.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for your introductions. After hearing you guys, I feel like I did such a poor job of introducing myself. Again, I am a singer, dancer, actor. I'm from New Jersey. I started dancing at 10. I went to the University of the Arts. I have done national, international tours. I have done off-Broadway, waiting for Broadway, it's coming. I teach. What else do I do? I love God. I love people. I'm definitely pro-Black all day. And
Unapologetically, too.
unapologetically. And you know, that's it. I just try to strive to be an all around good artist, being versatile, always being a student, you know. So this is why I'm the host. I guess you're wondering, like, why is this man the host? This is why I'm the host. So we're gonna get started, guys, and we have a couple of questions for these kings, because this is Tribal Connection, Rise of the Kings, and before you see these kings. So kings, I have a question for you. Now, the way this is going to work, guys, you don't have to feel like we have to go in order the way that I introduced you or the way that we're lined up. I want you to feel whatever impetus you feel to kind of impart and to share, then do that. If I have to cut you off, you know how they do the back in the day when there was what's that called? The Apollo, and the Sandman had to come on out with the little hook.
Yeah.
If I start doing this, that's my little top step. That means, all right, we got to cut you off because somebody else needs to go. We have a little time constraint. But at the same time, still feel free. Okay, so my first question that I want to ask you, gentlemen, or you kings, is what inspired you to embark on your journey of professional entertainment?
Well,
Okay, okay, all right.
I was thinking about people, like why we're here, and I'm here on this Zoom call because Jerome asked me to.
Okay.
Now, let me explain that. I grew up mainly in Camden, New Jersey, and I was on a busload from Camden of other Black children going up to Broadway in New York to see Hello, Dolly. No idea why they chose Hello, Dolly. You know, of all the shows they could, why Hello, Dolly? Until I walked in there and I saw it's because the whole cast on Broadway was Black. Never saw anything like that before. Pearl Bailey and Cab Calloway were in this piece. And it blew my mind. I'm sure that was one of the most inspiring moments of my life. But I'll tell you what guided me since then was that after the show, getting back on the bus to head back to Camden, before the bus pulled out, the door opened and a few of the actors stepped up in there and they said, "Thank you for being here." That's all they wanted to do, was come out onto that bus and say thank you after their show. And it made me realize, you know, how important giving back is, how important being alert to the people who ask you to do something, how important that is. And that's why I'm here.
Wow.
I share that similar story. For me, it was going with my parents to see Pippin and seeing Ben Vereen and losing my mind, because I think I remember seeing him in Roots and then seeing him on Broadway. So and it was my first Broadway show, and seeing this Black man who was so charismatic and charming, and the audience was literally eating out of the palm of his hand. He would come on stage and the entire mood of the building would change. And even at a young age, I knew that there was something special about it. Yeah. And I had already been doing like musicals, like little stuff, like as a kid, but this made me I wanted to be him. So I literally tried to be him. So today, he's still my inspiration.
Very cool. He's amazing. Okay.
Well, I would say, wow. For me, doing what I did kept me alive.
Wow.
I was raised in a town in the middle of Texas that was quite racist, quite sexist, quite homophobic. And unfortunately, I wasn't raised with parents that knew how to navigate an artistic child.
Okay.
And so when you have those combinations come together, there's really three things that kind of happen to children in that environment. They either are killed, they either kill themselves or they find themselves in a great deal of trouble.
Yeah.
And so my release, the thing that literally kept me alive, and when I say that, I mean that literally, I do not mean that figuratively, was having the ability at the time to sing. And the first time that I realized that the ability, that gift that God had given me was not only for my own protection and safety, but was also something that you can share with other people that also can move them, was having an opportunity. I remember this very clearly, having an opportunity at the age of 10 to go into a senior citizen's home. And there was a Black woman, an older Black woman there. Cannot remember her name to save my life, but I can still remember her face. And they kept saying that she was not going to make, I kept hearing those words, not going to make it. I didn't know what that meant at the age of 10, but I knew that it was bad. And I just went over, just the type of kid I was, I just went over and I don't know, something made me sit next to her. And she was like, we were talking about music and she said, do you like Nat King Cole? And I was like, yeah. And so I sang one of Nat King Cole's songs. And I came back every weekend because, I don't know, she just made an impact on me, maybe because she was the first person to actually see me and actually, I don't know, show love toward me. But I can tell you, within 8 months of me visiting her and just singing Nat King Cole songs to her, she came up out of the bed. She came off of the wires and the things that were in her. She actually started walking and talking. And the last moment that I remember of seeing her, she was actually teaching a class in music at the senior citizen home.
Wow.
That's the power of art. And I wanted to be a person that moved people through art. And so even today, my motto is anything that I create, I hope that it educates, entertains, and empowers. And if those three things are being done, then I'm happy. So for me, I think that older woman who I just cannot remember her name to save my life, she was the one to kind of help me to see that the gifts that God give you are not necessarily for you, they're for the people around you.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I guess my story, or what made me embark on this journey, my mother, we moved from Wilmington, Delaware, down to Richmond, Virginia. Knew no one down there, so I'm getting even countryer. So moving from Queens down to Wilmington, then down to Richmond, Virginia. I knew that I wanted to be in sports, and my mother went to school to sign me up for school classes and sign me up for trials for the football team. So I get my school schedule, and she signed me up for Drama 1, first period, freshman year of high school. So I walked into the class, and it was just amazing. Just the entertainment, just everything about it was it just took my breath away. Everybody had a job, how they fit in. And my first time actually being on stage was in Lil Abner. I'm unlike Marshall, I'm not a singer. I can carry a note, I can carry a tune, but by trade, I'm not a singer. But I got a part in Lil Abner, and the audience just loved my part. It was Evil Eye Flegel, who was the villain in the show, and the audience were raving, "Oh my gosh, you were so amazing, you're so amazing!" And I just caught the bug. Then I went off to college, and the first show I did in college was The Colored Museum by George C. Wolfe, and just the complexity of that show and how Blacks were represented and our story being told. I got a big part in that show, my very first show as a college actor, and it just stuck. So beyond my mother pushing me to do it when I thought I couldn't or wouldn't even be good enough, to then meeting my girlfriend, who's now my wife, pushing me through college, and now in our adult lives to just keep going and keep pushing. it's just so amazing. And the talent that people had been telling me, from my theater teacher in high school to my teachers in college, I didn't really understand it. I thought they were just telling me these things. But the reception I've gotten from audiences and my students, I had to keep pushing and have to continue to keep pushing, um, to do something great with this talent that God blessed me with. So I keep going because of my mother, because of Miss Bearford, my first acting teacher, because of um, Miss Valerie West, who was my college professor, my mentor, my wife Tania Berger, and my mother Tina Berger, who have just constantly pushed me to just do great things. And I want to do great things, and I have done great things. I'm going to continue to do great things. And just getting to know these gentlemen on this panel, I know once we make connections and we do things in the future, our stars are just going to continue to rise. So that's what keeps me going.
Wow.
All right. Well, I think I had the entertainment bug for a long time and I didn't realize it. Now I had a mother who dragged me to Broadway shows as a little kid. And like Ricardo, I remember Hello, Dolly was definitely one of them. Revival and Music Man. She always made sure I went to shows. And then I went to a high school where they put on Waiting for Godot in French, and we had to study it. So I was always exposed to the arts, but the way it was really told to me was, no, you don't do that for a living. You're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, but you're going to be a supporter and consumer of the arts. Because I thought, but I really want to write. But I said, no, maybe they're right. So I went to law school. I became a lawyer. And again, I read plays. By the way, went to Crossroads quite a bit. Because I went to college in New Jersey too. So I saw lots of plays. I remember being especially moved by the first production of Ma Rainey and Charles Dutton's performance. I remember James Earl Jones in the first Fences. And then the one that really got it for me was August Osage County. I saw that and I said, I remember at intermission, everybody was just dying to get back for the play to start up again. And I thought, I want to affect a Black audience the way this audience is being affected. And that's when I knew I'd had the bug and I had simply suppressed it for 3 decades, because when I started writing, it just started to flow and I haven't stopped. So yeah, I want to do great things as a writer. Like Damien put it right. I want to write wonderful stuff, and I'm going to keep trying until I do.
Those are some incredible stories and incredible testimonies of what inspires you. To be quite honest with you all, I feel like I've always been just a person who follows my heart and my convictions, even before I knew what they were. And I've always wanted to be a person to share something good with other people. And I noticed when I was a kid, because I started singing before I could actually talk. And I just remember how people would respond, and especially because I grew up in church. So a little 6-year-old with a microphone, they have to kind of stand you up on a little thing, because I also started directing the choir at that age. And they're standing on this thing, and it's like a big spectacle. Everybody's just looking at you and stopping. And then once you get over the people staring at you, you realize that you have something to do. And the thing that you have to do is share something good so that these people have something that they can keep going with, because it gets so hard. And I knew all of this at 6 years old. I was like, okay, they're looking at me, that's fine. But why am I here? Oh, I like to sing. Let me share this thing with them. And I started doing it, and it literally was just like a progressive thing. I started singing in church, I started directing, and I started dancing at 10. Then I went to school for it, I started teaching. So it just all was full circle. And then when I realized that I could be paid for this, I was like, where? Sign me up. So I made sure that I got the proper training. I made sure that I was on time. I made sure that I was serious about it. And I think the thing that inspires me the most, I said all that to say, is that I always want to share something good. There was this wonderful dancer. He's a dancer and choreographer. He was with the first company of Alvin Ailey. His name is Michael Leon Thomas. And I was in this dance company one year, and he came and choreographed something. And he said this to us. He said, listen, I know you guys have all these tricks and things that you feel like you need to present, but I want to set the tone for you guys. He said, you have nothing to prove, only to share. And that is the thing that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And it hit me at that moment that that's always what I felt. I don't really care that y'all looking at me and what y'all think. I just want to give y'all something good. So the thing that inspires me to do this professionally is because, to be honest with you, I would do it without being paid. So the fact that you pay me to do something that I love and I just want to share something good, absolutely. Anytime, any day, anywhere.
Yep.
So that's kind of what inspired me. And it's so interesting to feel that we kind of have that same thing, you know, going on, that we want to share something good. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question, guys, if you guys are
So
ready.
can I just say something about the,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
because I feel that each of us is doing what we're doing because we have to. You know, whether it's something that saved your life or whether it's something that you know you have on a very universal level, something to share, a gift you have to give.
Yes.
I remember when August Wilson gave the ground upon which I stand speech, and there was a lot of controversy after that. But he spoke about Black theaters, and he spoke about the difference between a Black theater, even though we're not funded, we exist, but we exist because we have to, right? And he told the story about the, I know I'm gonna mess this up, but it's the Hound and the Hare, and the fact that there was this big race, and the Hound was starved for days because the person who was running the Hound wanted that Hound to catch that hare, you know. And so they're going faster and faster than they've ever been before. And the person at the end of the race, because he never caught the hare, asked the Hound, "Why were you running so fast?" He said, "Man, I saw that hare up there and I was hungry. I was running for my dinner." And he asked the hare, who kept on looking back and seeing this Hound catching up to him, and he's going faster than he's ever gone before. And he asked, "Why did you run so fast?" He said, "Because I was running for my life." And I think that that's what we do, especially as Black people in this country.
Yeah.
In this country, we are running for our life. We are working for our life. And so when a lot of people say, well, you know, you work so you can live, it's actually, for me and probably all of us, the other way around. We live in order to work.
Period.
So
Absolutely.
I like that about everybody here. That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. I guess everyone agrees with what he has said. That was amazing, Ricardo. Wow. I'm going to move on to question 2, if you guys are ready. So my next question for you guys, it's kind of a 3-part question. Was there a significant challenge that you've experienced along your professional journey? How did you handle it? And what has it taught you professionally?
I know for me, I started out as a classical singer.
Okay.
So my focus was really in opera. So I went to Westminster Choir College to study voice. That was my principal. But I noticed that when I left, trying to actually make it as an opera singer, there were not a lot of roles for my dark self.
Yeah.
With it being, and also being 5'7".
Okay.
And thin. Well, I'm fat now, but I was thin back then. So I wasn't landing roles. People would hear my voice and think that I was 10 times larger than I actually was.
Okay.
So, you know, to put my little thin self on stage with some woman who's this huge woman is not going to look pleasing, not to mention my very dark skin. So then I realized, as much as I loved opera and still do, I was not going to have a career there. So then I had to do a complete 180 and try to think of, I had some friends that were auditioning for professional shows, you know, Broadway. And I was like, all right, I've heard of Broadway shows, but I don't know how to do that vocally.
Okay.
So then I found a teacher that still kept my classical training, but helped me to get the classical side. And I remember my first audition, I walked in and I sang one measure And this man stopped me and said, no. Come back here when you have to take this seriously. And I need you to come back when you can take this seriously and when you have a real voice. Excuse me? So now I'm insulted because there were 10 of us at one time in this room.
Oh.
And I'm like, what does he mean, a real voice? Like, I am a classically trained singer. How dare he? I don't understand what that means.
Yes, yes.
Only years later to find out that I went in unprepared. The audition notice said, please prepare a Sondheim piece. I came in with some classical piece. Please prepare this, please prepare that. So it's taught me that I need to know that of what I speak when I walk into an audition room. I need to know exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
How many measures, the 16-bar cut, like all that stuff. But that wasn't taught to me in my opera school, you know? So all of the things that I know now have literally become learning, like on-the-job training. And so when I have students, I push that on them so hard about know your best 32 bars, know your best 16 bars, know your best 8 bars, know the style of show that you're auditioning for, all that stuff, because that wasn't taught to me and I had to learn it on my own because my discipline was opera. So making a complete switch and having no one to guide me, you know, I learned it all on my own. And now, you know, 52 years old and still learning. I learned from my students. It was a big wake-up call for me to realize that, just like you said, Damien, I you know, having a story to tell, but I can still do it with my voice, but just changing the style of music and keeping the same passion that I had for singing opera, but just changing the style, and the doors just opened up. And then coming on auditions and seeing other Black men and other Black women, because opera was very white, very, very white. But opening up the door and seeing, you know, Black guys that I'm auditioning with, and, you know, going on an audition for a national tour, and all the guys are bald with mustaches and goatees and one earring, and we all look the same. You know, so I'm like, all right, one of us is getting this job because I don't know how, you know, we all got the same memo. There are 15 guys in this room that all look the same. And, you know, I started seeing the same faces over and over and over. We just became friends. Exactly what happens, you know. So my focus was to never be jealous if one person got it, because I'm like, you know what, it's his time to eat.
That's right.
And just because he's got the spotlight doesn't mean that I'm not next.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. I have to agree with you. It's so funny that you're sitting here because I always tell my students the same thing, and I tell my friends the same thing. So I know Rome is over there laughing because I've said the same thing. The guys that I auditioned with, I ended up going into the finals with the same 4 guys. And what I noticed was training.
Yep.
I can go into a room with about 300, 400, 500 guys, and I would audition. And this is of course during the cattle calls, just before I got an agent. Thank you, Lord, for agents. Hallelujah. Praise him.
Hallelujah.
You know, you do the cattle calls, and it would literally be the same guys. Kwame Michael Remy, Darius Day Haas, Christopher Jackson, Leslie Odom, and me. It'd be the same guys, literally. It got to the point that Kwame left his shoes after a dance audition, and Christopher took his shoes and said, we'll see him tomorrow at the callback. And we literally went into the callback, and Kwame came in and said, I need some shoes. And we were like, we got them. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
So, yeah, I just thought that was funny. But picking off of what was it that I learned and had to learn, I had to learn that I don't have to live in other people's boxes. One of the challenges that I went against was that it's very, very easy to allow other people of other cultures to intimidate you to the point of making you stay within their box.
Ooh, yes.
And so I had experiences where I would go in and I didn't care, and I didn't care whether the paper said that they were looking for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. If I could do the part, then I would go in and audition. And I had an opportunity to to audition for a show, and the gentleman that ended up being the director of the show, his name was Denton Yaki. and it was a regional show, and I really wanted to do the show for two reasons. One, because it was going to be back in my home state of Texas, and two, it was going to be at Galveston Island Outdoor Musicals, which is only an hour away from Houston, where my clan of a family, when I say clan, child, I mean a clan, we're all living. And so I was like, they had never really had an opportunity to see me, the majority of them. So I wanted to do this. And the show was Little Shop of Horrors. I'll never forget.
Oh, I love that show.
And I remember going into this audition, and Denton Yaki called me in because I submitted, and I submitted for Seymour. I did not submit for the plant. I submitted for Seymour, and I remember going in, and I remember being in the finals, and there were 4 other little blonde hair, blue eyed white children there.
Yes.
And one of the boys, this little queen, and I can say queen because I know a queen when I see one, decided to tell me, I think you came to the wrong time. The Audrey 2s were yesterday.
Wait a minute.
And so I said, thank you for the information, but I've always been told that people should keep their mouth closed or people will find out just how foolish they really are. 2 months later, I was Seymour, and he was the bottom of the plant.
Wow. The bottom of the plant, not
so you have to know, and I had to learn that I don't have to be placed in anyone else's box. I also had to learn on the other side that there are some people that don't know how to break out of their boxes.
Yeah.
They can't see you and they can't see our diversity. They can't see us in other places. And I know some Black people say, well, I don't feel like it's my job to share them, but I disagree. I believe that it's our job to always walk into the room, understanding that we're not only there to perform, we're not only there to show them how professional we are and how good we are, and that we can be the character that they want. Because my mindset in an audition has always been the same. I am the answer to your prayer. Whether you see it, that's on you.
Yep.
And that's not about being cocky. It's about understanding what you bring to the table.
That's right.
And so, I had to learn that evolution. I had to learn that about myself. And another thing I had to learn is what's for you is for you.
That's right.
And so I've auditioned for a show that I really, really wanted, child, and it was me and Kwame and some little tall, pretty little red-skinned boy. I remember. And this child couldn't sing his way out of a paper bag.
Oh, Lord.
But he got the role.
Mm.
And I remember Kwame saying, we're going to go see this show. And I was like, I'm not going to go see that show. I don't want to see that show. I was complaining about the train on the way there. I complained about the curtains, how they were ugly. I complained about the seats. I complained about everything because I was just bitter and mad. But I do remember the lead girl walked out on the stage and she was 6'2". And he was 6'3".
Got you.
And it came across to me then, what's for you is for you. What's not for you is not for you. Yeah. And so I think people understanding who they are, what they bring, is probably one of the most important things. And that's something that I myself have had a challenge in the evolution of my career in understanding.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, I think a common theme so far, from Khy and Marshall has been changing their mindset. And that's what I experienced, right? Was trying to change my mindset of what success was and not measuring it against other people's thoughts of what success is. Throughout my career, I've seen people who I've acted right alongside with end up in movies and on TV. I'm like, why them? Why not me? They're so successful. But I'm working, I'm eating, I'm healthy. My journey is just going to take longer to be on a major motion picture or be a regular on a daytime or primetime sitcom or television show. So I think my major overcoming moment would be me just changing my mindset and setting goals that I know I can achieve, and then making a timeline on those goals to be achieved. Because Marshall's success may be different from my success, right? And also that box that Marshall was talking about. We are people of color, and we can't gauge what success looks like for us versus people who aren't of color. Their idea of success is different from ours. They have different opportunities than we do. And I love how all of us are making or are creating different ways to obtain that success. So I guess the major obstacle that I had was just changing my mindset, adapting to those goals, and then just working hard to try to achieve those goals little by little.
Okay.
You know, we do have to deal with boxes. They do exist in our life and in our, especially in our business. But there's nothing that stops you from drawing your own box. You know, I mean, nothing stops you from that. And that's what happened to me. I never felt that anything got in the way of what I wanted. But that was because of how I was raised. And also because I grew up in a time when, even though there wasn't legal segregation in Camden, there was historic. You know, so there was the Black YMCA and there was the White YMCA. There was the Black church, still is, you know, but the point I'm making is that at the point where we were, it felt okay to go to the White YMCA, I went and didn't like it.
Okay.
You know, they had a beautiful indoor pool. They had all these gymnasiums and this and that. And we had one of those outdoor pools, you know, that was above ground and very small, you know. I just, always dirty, but it was ours. It was ours. It was our box.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the box theme really works for me too, because I realized I had put myself in the box of being a consumer of the arts and made these excuses. Oh, I don't have time. I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, back in my mind, I always wanted to write, but I just didn't. I'll never have time. I can't do it. I've got to do this. I have to be successful as a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But, and it took me a long time to say, I can be someone who contributes to the arts as opposed to, you know, paying for tickets. I can actually create things to put actors to work and just put things on. What I love about it, it's really the collaboration of it that I absolutely love. You know, you write something, you need actors, you need a director, you need all these other people to really make everything work. And I love that. And I really feel, it sort of annoys me that I really deprived myself of that for a long time because I had put myself in the consumer box and could not think my way out of it for a long, long time. So thank you guys for that box thing, because that really, really works. Yeah. That's so accurate.
It is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go on, just some of what Charles and what Ricardo said, you know, no one was in the way except for myself. I would put other things over my passion, my thrive to be in the arts. Once I moved from Virginia after teaching high school, I moved back up north to Jersey, and I was, well, I need to get a job. And that drive to do arts, it just ended up unfortunately taking a back seat because I put money and instant gratification of having funds ahead of my passion. But that passion was in the background, just lingering. So when Charles was like, I put it on the shelf for 30 years, I put acting and being creative on the shelf for a corporate job for 5 years until I said, enough. I started doing a show here and there to the point where I was busy and active every 4 months. So yeah, I putting myself in a box, you know, no more, create my own box. And then, you know, adapt to other boxes. So thank you for that, Ricardo.
Yeah, that the box scenario was really, really awesome. And it made me ask another question, or it made another question come up in my mind. And the question is, do you believe that we as Black actors and people who don't want to be in a box, you feel like we have to play the game to win the game? What are your thoughts about that as far as being in, like you said, Khy? I also had another question, but I'll ask you that a little later. But, you know, when you went there, they looked at you and they said, well, you can't play this, or you sound like this, so you can't, you're singing this song with this call, do you feel like, what are y'all thoughts on playing the game to then maneuver and do it our way, our rules? What are your thoughts on that?
I had an instructor tell me once, when I close my eyes, and I know that she meant well, but she said, when I close my eyes, I can't tell that you're Black.
Oh no!
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew it.
And this was in the mid '80s. So we weren't as vocal yet as I would now. I would let somebody know today that was inappropriate. Right. I kind of took it, but I remember thinking to myself, because I had a dad who was very like Black Panther pro, I remember thinking, so when you close your eyes, you can't tell that I'm Black. The way she said it, I took it as an insult, because what actually were you trying to say?
Right.
What was behind the intent of that? So I asked her, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, because colored people, because not African Americans. Well, colored people usually have, and I went, whoa. What color was I before I was colored? Because you're colored means that I was something else, and then something was added for me to be colored. So I would just prefer you to say that I'm Black. She's like, oh, I didn't mean to offend. I went, all right, well, I'm just checking you. Now I'm 22 years old, checking this older woman, who I'm still cool with today. But I in that moment decided, okay, I'm not playing the game. I'm gonna do what I need to do, pass my grades, but I'm not playing the game. I'm not. And I'm actually glad that I didn't, because as soon as I made up my mind that I'm not playing the game, like I said, another door just completely opened. And I learned this from another student about the box thing, since we're on this box.
Yeah.
A student said to me, when you are in a box, you're on the floor. But it's your job to turn that box inverted so that you're standing on the roof. And that has always been in my head, that I imagine myself being in the box. My job is to push these walls down and then turn those walls facing down so that I am now standing on top. And I try to do that in every form of my life, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm performing. I need to be a living example for my students. I need to be a living example for my community. I need to be a living example for myself. When I passed away, my brother passed away at the age of 45. And he was just at the pinnacle of his career. So I feel like I have a responsibility that I'm taking on his life and my life and all those who've come before me, so that when it's my time to pass, another 25-year-old kid is gonna go, my teacher, Mr. Khy, inspired me to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm all about kicking all the doors down, and I don't care what that looks like. Okay. I do not care what kicking the doors down looks like. I wanna be in the conversation.
Okay.
I think for me, I would say that I don't think I can. I don't know how to do. Yeah, the game thing. I don't. Yeah, no. I think it's interesting because someone said, I think it was Khy said that the person that inspired him was Ben Vereen, and Khy Ben Vereen is actually my godfather. And he's actually the man that actually chastises me, yells at me, demands perfection. I mean, he actually noticed when a toe is out of place during a dance.
Of course.
But the one thing that I like about him is, if I had to describe him, he's a Negro.
Okay.
He's not, everybody talks about the sophistication and all that, and I go, yeah, they talk about your sophistication because they see you in the nice little suit, you're smooth talking, but I saw you with the do-rag and the black socks and the black Jesus sandals the other day, eating spaghetti. So I know the real brother. But the thing about it, the reason why I brought it up is that he came into my life during a cruise ship. I was working on a cruise ship, and I ended up being his background singer, and it's so long ago. And there's a purpose why I'm telling you this story, I promise. But he came into my life, and I remember singing background with him, and I will never forget it. We were doing Stand By Me, and he was letting all the background singers sing, and he passed the microphone to me, and I guess I hit this really, really high note, and he literally walked over to me and took the microphone out of my head and was like, no, no, you go sit your behind down somewhere. And that became a shtick. It literally became a shtick for the rest of the 2 weeks he was on the ship. And he told me, he said, when you get off this ship, I want you to call me. Now, I'm not thinking nothing about it. Now, and this time, if you guys know anything about Ben Vereen, he has 2 homes. He has one in San Diego, he has one in Harlem. And I was living in Harlem. I got off the ship, came to his home. Of course, I'm nervous because, so, you know, it's Ben Vereen. This is Ben Vereen. So I went out and bought brand new khakis and a brand new shirt and everything, you know, because I'm going to have dinner with Ben Vereen. Of course, he opens the door with a do-rag on, and yeah. And I realized that maybe I was a little overdressed. But through him, I had the opportunity to meet Auntie D, who you guys know as Della Reese. I got the opportunity to meet Anthony Anderson when he was skinny. I got the opportunity to meet Delroy Lindo, Ozzie Davison, Ruby D, Vanessa Bell Calloway,
Yes.
her husband. These people became people that began to mentor me. And the one thing that they mentored me, and I'm so thankful to all of them, you know, it hurts me to think Auntie D is gone. She's the only woman I know besides my mama that would hit me on my butt for digging in her beans, her butter beans, without her permission. But the thing that they taught me was it was okay for me to be absolutely Black as long as I was absolutely professional.
Right. Okay.
And so for me, I don't see showing up on time, understanding negotiations, learning what it is to be in appropriate leadership of your own theater company or showrunner of your own TV show, demanding excellence of yourself, just like you demand excellence of people around you. I don't see that as playing the game. What I do see it as is that we have always been people of excellence. And if you've ever thought about it, we set the curve. We have to stop thinking that the other people set the curve. No, we set the curve. They just come up and try to steal it. Elvis Presley, Madonna, Eminem, must I go on? So we set the curve. We've always set the curve. The problem is, I think today, some of us have decided that it's more important to celebrate mediocrity than to actually expand excellence. And I think that is the issue right now. So I don't see it as playing the game. You know what I mean? If a white woman don't want me to do her show, that's fine, sweetie. I don't need to do your show. Because remember, my attitude is I'm the answer to your problem. Whether you see that, that's on you. So I don't ever see it as playing a game. That's just for me. You know, games are for children, and I'm a man.
Okay.
So I put games to the side. I don't have time to play games. If we're going to do this, let's do it with professionalism, with dignity, and more importantly, with excellence. And that's just the way that I see it. And it doesn't matter what project I'm working on, whether it's an all-Black theater project or whether it is I'm the only Black person in an all-white show, which has happened to me twice.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the way I see it.
Same.
Okay. No one else wants to jump in on that?
You know, I think about, when you say playing the game, you know what I think of? You know, Raisin in the Sun, classic, first Black play on Broadway. The story, Ricardo, you may know this too. Alice Childress wrote a play called Trouble in Mind, and that was going to Broadway, except she would not change the ending make the ending that the white producers wanted. She refused. So they turned her play down and went to Lorraine Hansberry and Raisin in the Sun. So that's an example where she absolutely refused to play the game, and you know, paid a price. Having said that, Trouble in Mind is a great play. I mean, it still needs to get to Broadway. But I think, you know, I mean, as long as you're willing to say, okay, I may lose out on what, you know, is a great opportunity, I think then you just, you know, you say, my principles won't let me play the game, I won't do it. I mean, Alice Childress is the classic example of that, because she could have been Lorraine Hansberry and opted not to be.
Right. And I think, Charles, it's so funny because I do think that we do get opportunities that come your way that you have to make a decision. You know, for me, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to do certain shows and they wouldn't let me do the certain shows. Then as soon as a brother get 40, now you want me to do kinky boots? I'm not getting up in no drag heels. You crazy? My back, my butt, my aches. Honey, Billy Porter got that stuff sucked out so he can do that role. I ain't got the money. I'm just not doing that. So I think, yeah. And it's like, I don't have a problem playing a drag queen. You just want a drag queen in kinky boots, and that's not going to work. Now, I can be a drag queen that works with loafers. We can work that out, but I'm not
so
doing
you
no
just can't do the heels. You just
right.
can't.
I'm not doing that. So I think that there's sometimes that we go, okay, is this really worth it? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort? You know, I booked Jesus Christ Superstar. I booked Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar just last year, but I turned it down because of the fact that in my own household, I have someone that has, you know, medical situation. I did not want to be away for a year while they're struggling with that. So sometimes you know, you realize you lose out on opportunities. Sometimes it's out of your control.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for that. I'm moving on to our third question. For the writers, but this is not just for the writers, because sometimes I notice that people who are performers, as much as they come across as being extroverts, they're very kind of shy. So this is a question, I guess, for all of our artists or our kings. As a writer or an artist, let's say it that way, in your respective field, is it more natural for you to express your thoughts and ideas verbally or through writing?
Well, I'm probably the youngest writer here, or have started writing late in life. I've actually written 4 plays, and I'm actually about to get one published. Woohoo!
Okay.
Yeah. So I put them up in front of an audience just to see what the response would be. And here in New Jersey, like Jerome knows, we have this thing called the Perry Awards. So they're it's like the Community Theater Tony Awards.
Right.
And it got nominated, and I won Best Direction, and I was completely floored. This is my first time out of the gate. I don't do things for awards, but it literally floored me because the stories were just a bunch of monologues and short scenes that I put together of certain things that have happened in my life, and it's called filling in the blanks. Like, you know how we all have this imagery of the way something happened, but here's what really happened. So that's my version of what I think really happened. And just writing from an honest place and using my colorful language. And, you know, sometimes there's some really heavy cursing. Sometimes, you know, there was one scene where it was about molestation, you know, stuff that we try to hide in our community. I would take advice from other playwrights, you know, because I know there's a style and there's a format that you have to follow. Sometimes I would just write things down and he's like, what is with this punctuation, college graduate, you know? So just learning that there's an art to it. And I am so inspired when I hear, you know, that there are other playwrights around, because I want to know, like, well, what was your inspiration? What was your inspiration? Because I try to write about things that I know about so that I don't ever want to come off as unauthentic, or, you know, well, that didn't happen, or that couldn't possibly happen. So I pull from stories that I've heard in my own community or from my own family. My grandmother was one of 17 children. So I got stories for days of just little things that have happened in our family. I would love to, as soon as I get published, I want everybody to just read it and just critique it and tell me what you think, because I'm always looking to learn new stuff. It's a whole new discipline for me. I've never really written anything until 4 years ago. So it's a whole new discipline for me.
Oh, okay.
All right, you know, that question whether what's more natural, the verbal or the writing. Well, the verbal is obviously faster, and you can you know, immediately form a quick opinion with verbally. But I find the writing forces you to explore and discover more about your feelings on a subject.
Okay.
I mean the writing, because, you know, you've got to set it up like, okay, I need some conflict. I have to have, you know, antagonists and protagonists that are sort of equally have the same kind of strength, and that forces you to think about issues more deeply than you might if you just gave a verbal answer. And so the writing really forces you to another level.
Okay.
And that can take some time. I mean, you can rewrite something 50 times and not be satisfied. You'll see that, Khy.
Oh, yeah. I've done that. I've torn out an entire like 3 pages, and I'm like, it feels fake. I would let someone read it, and they're reading it back to me, and I'm like, that feels fake. And then in one night, I would write 5 pages and go, I don't know where that came from, and now it's perfect. I'm so envious of people who can just really zone in on it. It takes me a while.
Save the 3 you threw out. Save them because they may work in something else.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, God, only 3. I wish. I wish.
I was gonna say, oh my God, yeah, I agree with you, Ricardo. Like, 3 pages? Oh no. I was teasing earlier when I said, student of Charles, but I went to Hudson Pride Connections. Lord Jesus, Hudson. Lord, Harlem Playwrights. Good Jesus. And been working with them for how long, Charles? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah. And I have to agree with him. I think for me, as the type of kind of artist that I am, there are certain things that work better, that express better in music, through my composition and through my lyricism. There are certain things that work better through performance, and some things that work better through writing.
Okay.
And so for me, I think each one of them are so individual and unique. And I kind of try to listen to the story, because for me, I'm looking at the story, right? The 8 pieces are the elements that make up a story, right? And then from that, I'm able to say, this will work better. The story comes out stronger as a song, or the story comes out better as a performance, or the story comes out better as, being written from me in that type of expression. So for me, it really just depends on what the story is. For example, the show that I wrote, Junior, which actually was a cathartic piece that I actually wrote while participating at Harlem Playwrights. And it went on to win last year the New York City Summerfest Theater Festival, which is supposed to be the largest theater festival in the country. And we went on to win it. But the piece was cathartic for me, because it was really about me dealing with the death of my dad, who actually basically abandoned me. And so it was better. It was the best way for me to express that in that format. It wouldn't have been, I don't think, as effective if I had made it a song.
Right.
Do you understand? And so I think that's where it is for me. And I think for most writers, I mean, and I agree that it's important to kind of learn the structure of writing and the pieces of writing and what they are. What is a denouement? What is the fall in action? What's the climax? What's the midpoint? The low points. What are these things? What is the dramatic question? These things, they're very good and important to know, so that you can be a better and more effective writer. But it also helps you. I agree with Charles. I think writing makes you explore viewpoints and sides of an issue that you may not have done if you were just performing or speaking it.
Yep. For me, I agree with all you guys. I think that writing helps me understand my feelings, but then there's this point in the process where my biggest challenge is me, that I need to get out of the way. It's like if I'm writing a monologue or a song, that's one thing. But when I'm writing dialogue and my feelings are in there, get in the way of the characters. The characters say, Rick, just shut up, please. Let us talk. And that's a hard thing, to learn how to get yourself out of the way and listen to their voice. They have their own feelings.
Right.
Yeah. Always a struggle.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think also knowing when what they're saying is to inform you, and when what they're saying should be on the paper to inform the audience. Yeah. I think that's, because I think a lot of people think, particularly around dialogue, that dialogue is about communication, and I disagree. I think dialogue is about the last tools that you use to get the character toward the goal.
Mm, mhm,
whatever their goal is that they're fighting for in this play. And if you think about dialogue in that way, you don't get the soggy dialogue. You don't get the you know, you get to the point. You get what, you know what I mean, and you express. And that's why I said, I think, you know, I think that that's the key to it, is understanding what is it that they're saying that's really for me, to inform me. You know what I mean? To inform the action,
Right.
or to inform the sequence or the goal or the plot point at this point. And then what is it that they're sharing with me that they actually want the audience to hear them say?
Right.
You know?
Is it August? Who was somebody said, well, what I do is I put the pen to paper and then just watch it move.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yep.
Okay. Damien, you have nothing to add to that? You write, don't you?
I don't. I can't consider myself a writer because I haven't finished anything.
Okay.
So everything that you guys have said, I'm taking that food for knowledge, because I've started many things many times, and then like Ricardo said, me, Damien, get in the way of the character. So I have some unfinished things that I need to just go back and really tap into and actually complete things, see it to fruition.
Okay.
Well, we'll exchange information. How about that? We'll work on that.
Works
as
for
brothers.
me.
As brothers. All right.
There we go.
Absolutely. You guys have shared some really great things, and I have found, you know, some new gentlemen and artists to look up to. So in the vein of that, is there anyone in your profession or particular thing, one particular thing that you do, because we are multifaceted artists here in Kings. So is there any one person in a specific lane that you want to choose of entertainment that you look up to, and why?
Well, somebody mentioned, who mentioned, Marshall, did you mention Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis?
Yes, Ruby.
Yeah.
I got to meet Ruby Dee and well, I got yelled at by Ruby Dee because I sat on her hat, but I met Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. Yeah.
Why did you sit on her hat, man?
Long story, Todd. Long story.
All right,
long
okay.
story.
Well, I mean, the thing about the two of them that I love, and I was blessed to work with them for years, and you could see that they are royalty. You could see that. You could see the difference. And when you go back in their lives, you realize that not only were they talented, but they were led by their convictions and paid the price. They paid the price. But the two of them, you know, when they walked in the room, I just looked and I just, you know, I would say I look, other than my father and my mother, in the profession, that's who I was.
Yeah, Ruby Dee and Ossie. Okay.
Mine would not be anyone that is a celebrity.
Okay.
Mine is my Aunt Gloria, who passed away at the age of 41. She was the one in the family that was the singer, actress, dancer, could have easily done Broadway, could have easily been a recording artist, could have easily done any of that. She was beautiful. She was light-skinned, so she wasn't a dark woman that was threatening. Could have easily been a major success, but chose to use her singing and her gifts for church.
Okay.
Like she made a conscious decision. She's like, you know what? I feel that I don't want to have an audience to where I open myself up to. I would rather have a congregation that I open myself up to. So I'm like, okay. And being young, I didn't really understand that, because I'm like, well, people perform in church all the time. But as I got older, I understood what that meant, because she still enjoyed performing and she still enjoyed singing, but her fulfillment came there. And I just saw how she was so concentrated about it and so focused that I said, all right, well, my focus isn't going to be there. I want my focus to be actually performing. I get a joy when I share my gift with an audience member. If one person likes what I do, great. If, you know, there are 2,000 people in the audience and one person likes my stuff and the rest doesn't, then that's who I performed for. But she gave me a lesson in, I couldn't take compliments. could not take compliments. If someone came up to me and said, wow, you did really great today, and you have a wonderful voice, I would always try to find something. I was embarrassed about it, so I'd go, oh no, I messed up on that part, or I did this, or oh, that didn't sound right. And it took her saying, stop doing that. When you say things like that, you are taking away from someone's experience.
That's right. That's
Say
right.
thank you.
Their view.
And then you can critique yourself at home, but
Okay.
your job, when someone is giving you accolades, you're still in performance mode. You can't take away their experience by complaining about your work, because now you sound conceited.
Yep.
Oh, so she checked me on the spot.
Mhm.
And even today, I performed in a few houses around the country, and that has always followed me. You know, to check myself and say thank you, even if I had a terrible performance. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and then just go beat myself up in the dressing room, or keep it private to myself, because I don't want to ruin anyone's experience. I feel like we are all born with the responsibility of song, gift, of dance, of something,
Yeah.
or whatever our medium is. We were born with that responsibility to share. So if I'm offering it to you,
Mhm.
I want you to accept it and not come chase me for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was my Aunt Gloria, was my inspiration.
Wow. Okay.
Well, if you want to talk about writers, I think we all labor in the shadow of August Wilson.
Mm.
I mean, I can't do what he does. I mean, I can't sit down and write a riveting monologue like that. I just can't. I'm trying, but I'm just not there. May not get there. But there's some others too that I think are sort of like Charles Fuller, who wrote Soldier's Play.
Soldier's Play.
Yep.
He's wonderful. You know, Lynn Nottage, you know,
Mm-hmm.
also wonderful. Richard Wesley, one of my instructors. There's some people out there that you can really emulate that are really just terrific, and I kind of look up to all of them.
Mm. Okay.
I think if I had to go in, I think Ben Vereen is a given, right? Because I'm sure if I don't say that and he sees this, I'll be in trouble. So Ben Vereen is definitely somebody that has been a great inspiration to me, and who has always just kept me to remember that it's about being excellent, and that excellent is not perfect.
Mhm.
And I think that's the difference. Perfection is people that are trying to make everything just right, and excellence is about every time you perform, you make it just a little bit better than you did the last time.
That's right.
And I think that and so just striving for excellence is something that he inspired, and but his authenticity, and like I said, he also allowed me to understand that it was okay for me to be just a regular Black man
I love
at
that.
home and with my friends. And, it was okay for me to have my Black eyed peas, cornbread, and greens. It was all right. That, it was okay to listen to my blues or listen to whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Play dominoes. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And it was okay to have that and have those cultures and still be successful and still be professional. So I always look up to him for that. But there is another person that I would have to say that also has been, or an inspiration in someone, and he happens not to be a Black man, and he's no longer with us, but his name was Tom O'Horgan. And if anybody knows anything about Tom O'Horgan, he is the original director and creator of Jesus Christ Superstar and Hair, and he discovered my godfather Ben Vereen. He's also one of the main men involved in Pippin.
Okay.
And so Tom O'Horgan, I had an opportunity to work with him, and I just thought he was strange. He was the only director I'd ever seen, white guy that was that old, that was still wearing psychedelic t-shirts and didn't wear shoes.
Oh wow.
And
That sounds like James Rado.
Yeah, and just very unique, and everything was very zen. And I did think he was I thought maybe he hit the sauce a couple of times too much before he came to work, but you come to find out that was the way he worked, and his uniqueness and his vitality and his ability to create was something that was always mind-blowing. How he could take a scene and he could see not only see the lines, but see in between the lines.
Very good.
Not only that, he could see the costume, but he can see how the costumes inform. Not only see the set, but how the set was unique and how it informed. A simple song like Aquarius that everybody knows, how he saw that should have been the opening when it was not originally supposed to be. But he could see it, and that ability, and it was something that I always wanted for myself, just to be able to dissect and see within the black and white. You know what I mean? To see the colors within it, and so I would definitely say Ben Vereen and Tom O'Horgan.
Okay.
Me, I would say Hollywood-wise would be Denzel Washington and Spike Lee. Spike Lee, because of his vision and directing, and how he's always incorporated himself into his projects. That's something, once I get to that level, I plan to do, because outside of just being an actor, I love directing, and why not direct myself, and bestow that talent of both acting and directing at the same time. But the way he does it and the way his point of view comes across on screen, I just aspire to do things like that. And Denzel and his character development, how he can be one character loving the Lord, and then next thing you know, he's turned around and playing Malcolm X, Nation of Islam. So those two definitely, if we're looking at Hollywood and on a grand scale. But I draw inspiration from my peers. So people who I've worked with and seen how they do what they do. So people I've acted on stage with or seen, it's, wow, that's where I get some inspiration. And, how did you develop this character, and what was your thought process, and how did you come to this point? People like a good friend of mine, Arthur Gregory Pugh, and him, just how his work ethic, how he's in 5 shows at once, and I don't know how he does it, but he does it and does it well.
And does full monologues in each show.
Exactly. Full monologues in every show, and I don't know how he does it. And it's a different character each time he hits the stage. I tell him that all the time, and I know he's probably, after he sees this, he's gonna be like, "Why'd you bring me up, bro? Why'd you do that?" But I draw inspiration from people I can actually touch every day, and that's definitely one of them. And just with his character development and how he's a student of the stage, and that's what I thrive to do, and just always respect my craft, and just like you guys have said, give the audience what they came for.
That's right.
Every time out.
I definitely have to piggyback off of you, Damien, because I try to keep an energy and a spirit that I'm always learning. So anytime I do a show, I'm learning from the people that I'm doing a show from. I watch people on TV, I'm inspired by them. And having done so many shows and been a part of so many things, I just think about all the people who are they're so great. But one person that sticks out to me, that to me is a legend, and I've actually had the opportunity of working with him. I took a master class I took a summer intensive at Philadelphia one year. This was when I was in college. I went to the University of the Arts. So instead of going home, I just stayed there. I was an RA, but I also got a chance to be a part of Philadelphia's summer intensive, and they had Hinton Battle there.
I love him.
He's a great guy.
It's amazing. He brought the old school, y'all, but he is so crazy and so fun and so real, and doesn't apologize for his blackness. He doesn't apologize for his greatness, his technique. He's like, listen, I'm this old and I'm sitting up here killing it. What are y'all doing? What are you doing? So I didn't even know who he was, y'all, before I took his class. And he loves to call the boys out. He's like, which I love too, because they don't give the men a lot of play in dancing. They want us to lift people, come and be strong, but they don't really want us to show that grace and that technique all the time. So for him to come and to nurture that, and then I found out who he was, and he was an original in the Sophisticated Ladies. Then he came back and did Dreamgirls. Then he did the movie. He was an original on the original with Jennifer Holliday, and then for him to come and my mind was blown. And just to know that he can sing, he can dance, he can act, he can direct. He has ballet training down. I mean, those feet, those legs, crazy. So I would have to definitely say Hinton Battle. Oh my God. And the fact that I got to work with him. I mean, so many other people, but I definitely had to showcase him because he is just the ultimate.
Great guy.
What a triple threat is. And not only is he all that, he's done all that, but he still manages to keep his humanity. And that's what I always want. Like, I just want to be accessible to everybody. Like, yo, I'm you. I'm you. You're me. It happened for me. It can happen for you, period.
Yeah.
I'm not so up here that you can't touch me, you know? I love that quality about him, so I definitely have to showcase him. Okay, guys, I have one last question for you all. And I know this may be hard for us because we're all very expressive people, but in one to two sentences, what would you all say to your younger self, or you can incorporate it to an up-and-coming artist right now? It can either be to your younger self, it can be to both your younger self and an up-and-coming artist, or it can be to an up-and-coming artist, whichever one you choose. 1 to 2 sentences.
I know for a fact that for the up-and-coming artist, I would say probably the most important thing, period, study your craft. You're a singer, study it. If you're a dancer, take a class.
Right.
Take classes, take classes, take classes.
I love it.
Period.
Okay, what would you say to your younger self then? Thank you for that. What would you say to your younger self?
Don't listen to white noise. Everything around you is white noise that's saying no. Don't listen to the white noise. That's doubt.
Okay, so we're gonna do it that way, guys. We'll do it in 2 parts. You can tell, your younger self something, and then I want you to tell the up and coming artists 1 or 2, something in 1 or 2 sentences.
I would tell my younger self, you are worthy. You can do this. You are equally, if not more talented than your peer next to you. You can do it. Just because they went to the Yale or a conservatory, your education and your training is just as good, if not better, than those big name schools. You can do this. Okay. That's exactly what I would tell myself. And get over what Khy said, that doubt. Many times in the past, I doubted myself because I didn't go to a big name. But I'll shout it loud from the mountaintops. Virginia Union University gave me a chance and an opportunity to learn so much. And what I would tell an up-and-coming artist would be, don't stop and always be learning. I can't tell you how many times people just think that they can do things off of their raw talent, but raw talent only gets you so far. So always be learning, always keep training, always keep doing.
Okay.
Well, I would say recognize, this is to both, whether it was to me or anybody else, recognize that we're in a revolution. We're not in a party. And celebrate, but in the bigger scheme of things, we are in a revolution that goes way back to our parents, our ancestors, and goes forward into our children and their children. Never leave your post. That's what I would say.
Never leave your post. Very good.
Well, to my younger self, this panel has given it to me. Get out of your own way and step out of the box. The only thing keeping you in the box is you. So that would be the advice to myself. To the current crop of young artists, it's more, I think Khy really said it. Work, study, do what you have to do. Constantly improve your craft constantly is to basically means you're staying current. So always work, always struggle to improve, whatever it takes, classes, rehearsals, just do it.
Okay.
I guess for me, my younger self, I would say it gets better. It gets better. Yeah, definitely, it gets better. And then for the new and up and coming, never underestimate the power of ignorance.
Wow. Never underestimate the power of ignorance.
Never underestimate the power of ignorance.
Very political.
And I mean in all regards. Never underestimate that the very white friend that you're next to thinks that you're beneath him. Never underestimate that. Never underestimate that when you walk into a room for an audition, if they close their eyes, they could imagine you were white. Never underestimate that if you write a play about two gay men that are Black, you're being too political. But if you change their names and make them white, then you're being progressive. Never underestimate the power of ignorance. Because when you know that you're faced with ignorance, then you can always shine the light of knowledge and wisdom.
Wow.
So just never underestimate the power of ignorance.
Let the church say.
Jay Marshall, you be talking some stuff, Jay Marshall.
Listen, I was writing all of this down, all of the good points. Listen, never underestimate the power of ignorance. This man said, never leave your post. That one is good.
I'm stolen. I'm using it. Yes.
Listen, Charles is not getting off this box. He's probably gonna write a new play about getting out the box because it resonated to him.
The power of ignorance can make you president, apparently.
That's a whole other panel that we don't have time.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's so funny, Charles. You hit it right on the head. The power of ignorance make you president, but it also kills 175,000 people.
Yeah.
Drop. Drop. Period. Wow. The thing that I definitely wanted to say to these up and coming artists is that you will never arrive. What that means is stay humble, stay open, and know your stuff. If you come, like there's like this crazy little new saying, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, but it's true. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And don't ever think that you are better than the next person, because you're not. Because just as good as you are, there's somebody who's better. It's about opportunity. It's about being it's about destiny. What's meant for you is meant for you, and what's not is not. And what I would say to my younger self is, wow, that thing that you think is a bad thing is the thing that makes you special, and the thing that should push you and want you to share that uniqueness about yourself, and that talkativeness and that happiness and that joy and that God inside of you. That is what you need to celebrate, not turn it to what other people say that it is. So those things that you feel are, those are the unique qualities about you, and push them forward. So that's what I would say to my younger self. You guys have been, such a wonderful panel. I have definitely, in all sincerity, learned a lot. I'm a sponge. I try to learn and absorb as much as I can with respect and love. And you guys have shared of yourselves, and I'm just so happy that I was able to have this discussion with you and just be a part of it in any way, because you guys really shed some light. And I think that the people who watch this will be blessed, and they will be touched, they will be informed, and they will have other people to look up to, because you all are definitely that. So this has been Tribal Connections, Rise of the Kings, our roundtable discussion, and we hope that you enjoyed. And like, comment, subscribe, and please let us know your thoughts on our roundtable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.